The bus hissed like a sleeping animal and stopped where there shouldn't have been a stop at all. No road, no signage. Just a cobblestone street shining with a wet sheen under a sky that looked like dusk and dawn at the same time. Emily blinked at the window. Houses with steep, dark roofs leaned toward one another like conspirators. Shop windows were crowded with antiques that reflected light without reflecting her. The driver never turned, the doors sighed open. "End of the line," he murmured, though they hadn't passed a single town for miles. Emily stepped down with her backpack and a knot in her stomach. The doors folded shut. The bus pulled away, and as its taillights vanished, so did the lane it had arrived on. Stone swallowed asphalt like a mouth closing. "Emily," a voice called. She spun. An elderly woman stood in a bakery doorway, flour on her hands, eyes too bright. The sign above read, "Maple and Marrow." "You're late," the woman said warmly, as if scolding a granddaughter. "We were expecting you at sundown." "You know me?" The woman's smile never wavered. "Everyone does, dear. First nights are cruel here. Come in before they notice you're still unclaimed." "Who?" The woman's gaze cut to the alley where shadows pooled wrong, colors bending around a bent figure that wasn't there a blink before and was gone the next. The smell of cinnamon reached Emily. The town breathed with an old patience. "I'm Marta," the woman said, ushering her in. A brass bell rang overhead, but the sound was backward, a chime recalled from memory. "Rule 1. When they knock, you don't open. Rule 2. When the key turns by itself, you don't touch it. Rule 3. She pressed a small brass key into Emily's palm. It was colder than metal should be. "You will be tempted to look for this place on a map. Don't. A mapped thing becomes edible." "Edible?" "For something very big," Marta whispered. "And very hungry for what's never been found." Candles trembled, though no draft moved. Behind glass, a porcelain doll tracked Emily with human carefulness. A wall clock's hands ticked backward, then forward, as if reconsidering time. "I think there's been a mistake," Emily said, voice thin. "I fell asleep on the bus." "I was going." "To where you always say you're going," Marta finished, eyes suddenly kind. "Home." Outside, distant footsteps measured the street like surveyors. Somewhere, a page turned. The town listened. Marta locked the bakery door with 3 practiced turns, then another turn that didn't touch a lock at all. "Room's ready, you'll hear them soon, don't answer." Emily pocketed the key. It burned a little, not hot, simply specific. "Why me?" she asked. Marta's face softened, sorrow pressing lines deeper. "Because you've been here before," she said, voice almost apologetic. "We all have." The inn smelled of bread and ink, a mix that shouldn't work but did. Marta led Emily up a narrow stair. Each step creaked a different note, as if rehearsed. The hallway's mirrors held reflections that lagged by a breath. When Emily lifted a hand, the reflected hand obeyed late, bothered. At the last door, Marta stopped and took Emily's wrist gently. "Rule 3 is the one everyone breaks," she murmured. "Curiosity is a throat." She glanced toward Town Square where a statue stood, an armless surveyor with a roll of parchment instead of a head. The parchment rippled as though breathing. Inside the room, a small bed, a table, a single candle, a window overlooking a street that woke and slept at once. On the table lay a leather ledger. Emily opened it and recoiled, her name repeated down a column. Emily Norwood. Arrival, stamped with odd dates, some crossed out, some forward slanted, as though they hadn't happened yet. The final entry was today, 7:19 p.m., written in neat, old-fashioned script. "I didn't put that there," Emily said. Marta's eyes were on the ledger, but not reading it. "It writes itself, don't sign." "I wasn't going to." "You will want to," Marta said gently. "It feels like relief. It isn't." From the street drifted a sound like 1,000 pencils measuring distance on paper. A hush fell, deep and bell-shaped. "What happens if I open the door?" Emily asked, trying on bravado. "You won't get to close it," Marta said, "and whoever you let in won't fit in the doorway leaving." The candle leaned without wind. Emily touched the brass key. It buzzed against her skin like a trapped name. "Why tell me the rules?" "Someone told me," Marta said. "I broke one anyway. You said I've been here." Marta gave a small, tired nod. "Everyone arrives the first time, convinced it's the first time." She threaded a red thread through the door latch in a sailor's knot and pressed it into the jamb till the wood swallowed it. "This helps almost as much as belief." Downstairs, the bakery bell rang backward twice. Marta flinched. "They're on their rounds. I have dough to pretend to knead." She touched Emily's cheek with flour-cool fingers. "Don't trust voices, especially yours." Alone, Emily stared at the ledger. The neat strokes were beautiful, disciplined, familiar. She had the odd, sixth sense she could copy them perfectly. A blank line waited beneath her name. Her hand twitched toward the pen. She shoved it away. The pen rolled to the floor and did not stop where it should have. It bumped something that wasn't there and went around, continuing its slow, inevitable circle. Night fell like ink tipped in one motion. The town dimmed without turning off. The statue's parchment fluttered. The ledger's pages shifted. The first knock came immediate and soft, like a polite aunt. "Emily?" It was her mother. "Honey, open up. This place isn't safe. I found you." Emily's throat closed. Her mother would never be here, would she? She backed from the door as the handle gave a small, cheerful jiggle. "Mom?" Emily whispered before catching herself. The voice outside warmed, relieved. "Oh, sweetheart. You sound so scared. Please, let me hold." The voice bent, not the words, the physics under them, like a tape thumbed during playback. It recovered quickly, returning perfect, practiced. Emily dragged the table against the door, set the candle on the floor, killed the flame with a cupped breath. Darkness met her like velvet hiding teeth. The key in her pocket grew heavier, as if someone on the other side were hanging from it. "Emily," the voice said, becoming her best friend Liv, bright and joking, exactly right. "Tell me you didn't get on that weird bus. This is such a you move. Let me in before you go viral." Another knock layered under the first, wrong percussion against wood. The ledger's pages rasped, turning themselves to an entry she knew wasn't hers. Opened at second knock. "Taken." That line faded like fog exhaled. New wet ink wrote itself. Refused. Observed. She forced her breathing slower. "Not opening." The hallway answered in her own voice. "Not opening." Perfect mimicry with a hair of echo, as if the hall were recording and playing back. The mimic laughed softly, the way she hated hearing herself laugh on old videos. A long, shivering scrape traced the edge of the doorframe. The red thread hummed like a plucked string, bright and taut. From the window, movement. Across the street, under the slope of a roof, something tall and hinged peered through the glass, its suggestion more than its shape. The grin appeared first, too wide, then the tilt of a head as if the ceiling had a joint. It didn't. The thing placed a single finger where its mouth might be. "Hush." Emily retreated till her knees hit the bed. On instinct, she scattered salt from the tiny in packet she always kept in her backpack. The crystals pattered the floor. The air pulled a small sob through her chest she did not mean to make. Silence, complete, the quiet of a closed atlas. The key turned by itself. It was a tiny sound, polite, almost embarrassed. The table's weight shifted. The latch tasted open. Emily saw it in the negative of darkness, the idea of a door about to be open. She moved without planning, palm flattening over the keyhole from the inside. The key stopped, arrested by her skin on the other side of metal. She felt, impossibly, a fingertip against her palm from the hall. The sensation of a print that matched hers like a bad translation. A whisper pressed through wood and bone. "Cartographer." The word wasn't said. It was measured across her. Something heavy sighed, thwarted, the key stilled. The ledger wrote in slow, elegant strokes, lock held, first night survived. Footsteps retreated, not along the hall but away across pages, as if walking toward the edge of a drawing. The grin in the opposite window uncurled like a dead spider, vanishing into rafters that thinned into mist. Dawn arrived incorrectly, too fast, like a curtain ripped open. Emily relit the candle with shaking hands and let herself exist for a while. Her palm ached where no mark should be. When she looked, a small ring of map-like lines lay under the skin, faint as a watermark. Marta returned with a tray and a look that weighed good news against the absence of worse. "You didn't sign," she said, relieved. "And you kept the lock." Emily showed her palm. "It touched me." Marta didn't recoil. She stared with a sympathy close to fear. "It knows your outline now." "Who is it?" Marta glanced toward the square. The statue's parchment face was angled at their window. "We call it the cartographer. Not because it makes maps, but because it convinces maps they were always missing us." "Missing you?" "This town was born of a bargain," Marta said, voice becoming a history she had told many times to many Emilys. "Long ago, people wanted to escape what was true about them. They found a fold in the world where truth slipped. They settled. They promised to never be found. They forgot the price. You must remain unmapped. If the world learns your shape, you become part of its hunger. You are chewed into legend or cautionary tale. And something old eats the space you were." Emily thought of search bars and satellite photos, of the itch to pin, to locate. How do people keep from pinning this place? "We forget," Marta said. "We choose to. Memory is a map, too." The ledger lay open. New lines had grown like veins. Emily Norwood, Cartographed, deferred. "I don't want to be eaten by a story," Emily said. "Then don't give it coordinates," Marta replied. "But last night you did something worse. You held the lock with your hand. Now the cartographer knows a door to lean on." "What happens tonight?" "The survey," Marta whispered. "Lanterns, strings, the way men in the old world would measure a field. They will carry your name like twine and try to wrap the town in it. If they loop it thrice, the street will straighten. Straight things are easier to swallow." Emily swallowed dry bread. "Can I fight them?" "You can mislead them," Marta said. "You can give the key to someone who wants it more. But they always want it less in the morning." "Who gave it to you?" Marta looked away. "The woman who greeted me my first night." "How many times have I—" "Enough that questions chew holes," Marta said gently. "Better to bake." Outside, men with lanterns appeared, where there had been no men a blink before. Coatless, neat, indistinct, they drove small stakes into cobbles, ran twine that hummed. The town shifted uncomfortably, as if a belt tightened. Emily's hand throbbed at each hammered stake. She stared at the key. It tasted like a choice she remembered making wrong. "Can I leave?" "Buses come," Marta said. "They go where roads agree to exist." "Roads are opinions," the cartographer edits. "So no. Not without a trade." When twilight broke like a plate that couldn't, the lanterns flared brighter, and the parchment-faced statue unrolled another inch. The ledger wrote itself a door. The third night was supposed to be the worst. This was only the second. But the town's breath shortened. The lantern men's twine had looped twice, lines straightened. Shadows lost their comfortable bends. The bakery's sign, once hand-carved, now looked cast, mass-produced. Emily felt corners sharpening inside her, places where complicated feelings had been smoothed for packaging. She made a decision exactly when she didn't. She pocketed the ledger. She slipped out past Marta's, turned back and walked toward the square, with the steady walk of someone who believed their steps were already written. The statue watched without eyes. Lanterns approached in neat, cordial rows, their bearers smiling professionally with mouths not entirely necessary. "I want to talk," Emily said, voice nearly steady. "To the cartographer." The lanterns parted. Beneath the square, the cobbles opened along the twine grid like a hatch reading a blueprint. A chasm waited, not abyssal, but deep enough to hold the sound of 1,000 pages turning at once. Hands rose, paper white and ink-stained, not grasping but indexing. A shape climbed, made of contours rather than flesh, An atlas stood up and arranged into a person-sized idea. Where a face might be, the pale ghost of a compass turned, pointing emphatically at Emily's chest. She held up the key. "You want this?" It considered, then shook its knot head. The compass spun and settled. South, north, nowhere. "You want me mapped." The compass stilled. Agreement. "If I refuse?" Her name crawled across the inside of her palm, where the watermark had been, letters spelling Emily Norwood backward and forward at once. The cartographer raised 2 fingers and looped an invisible line once, twice, waiting for the third. Streets around the square straightened another shade. Marta's bakery window reflected a person who was almost Emily, if a stranger described her to a well-meaning artist. "What if," Emily said carefully, "I stay and hold the lock? What if I choose to be the address you can't finalize?" Behind her, Marta's breath broke. "Don't," she whispered. "It hurts in the shape of a purpose." Emily opened the ledger and wrote with the same disciplined hand the book had always used. "Keeper." The ink bled like blood agrees to be metaphor. She placed the key on her tongue, metal and season, and bit down until taste replaced doubt. The chasm exhaled a sound like disappointment and relief. The compass face cracked a polite hair, the lanterns dimmed, the twine slackened. The third loop never closed. Pain arrived, clean, architectural. The watermark on Emily's palm spread up her wrist, across her shoulder, down her ribs. An atlas with one missing center. She felt doors arrange themselves behind her eyes. She felt the town recrease into secrecy. She felt her mother's voice fade, not die, become inaudible to positions. When she woke, flour dusted her hands. The bell above the bakery door chimed backward, dear as a memory that never happened. A bus sighed outside where roads refused to exist, bringing a girl with a familiar backpack and the polite terror of first nights. The sign above the door read Maple and Marrow. "Marta?" the girl asked. Emily smiled with a mouth that remembered another name, and a duty that would ache until the world ended or the map did. "You're late," she said gently, already reaching for the small brass key that was always colder than metal should be. "Come in before they notice you."